All right, so we're diving into something pretty wild today.
Yeah, we are.
Like, honestly, something that sounds straight out of science fiction.
I know, right?
Bringing back creatures we thought were lost forever.
Lost to time,
Gone for thousands of years.
Yeah, extinct. You know what I mean?
Exactly extinct, but now we're talking about de-extinction.
And a company actually doing it. Colossal Biosciences.
Colossal Biosciences. Yeah, they're making headlines.
With some pretty cutting-edge genetic technology.
It's mind-blowing stuff. So today, we're zeroing in on one of their biggest projects.
The de-extinction of the dire wolf.
The dire wolf, yeah.
Those massive wolves from the Ice Age.
I mean, when I hear dire wolf, I think a bigger, badder wolf.
Exactly. Way bigger than the gray wolves we see today.
Okay, so not just a slightly larger version of what we have now.
No, these were built for a different world.
A tougher world, right?
Yeah. Think Ice Age megafauna mammoths. Giant sloths.
Wow, these wolves were taking down mammoths.
That's what they were built for, powerful jaws. Huge teeth.
Real apex predators.
Top of the food chain.
But they vanished something like 10,000 years ago, right?
Around that time, yeah. Probably a mix of climate change.
And competition with other predators.
Right, as the environment changed.
So why bring back the dire wolf of all creatures?
It's a good question, right?
What's the big idea behind Colossal focusing on this particular animal?
Well, there's two main goals.
Okay.
First, they want to push the boundaries of de-extinction itself.
Really refine those techniques.
Exactly. Figure out how to do it better, understand the challenges.
Makes sense. And the second goal?
Conservation.
So it ties into helping the environment.
Right. The dire wolf was the keystone species.
Meaning?
It had a huge impact on its ecosystem.
Okay, so bringing it back could have ripple effects.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could learn about the role of apex predators.
And how they contribute to a healthy environment.
And maybe even apply that knowledge to conservation efforts today.
Wow, that's a long game.
It is, but it's exciting to think about.
Absolutely. So how do you even start bringing back an extinct animal?
You need DNA.
Well, yeah, but from where?
Fossils.
Really?
Yeah, Colossal found some amazingly preserved dire wolf fossils.
Like, how old are we talking?
A 13,000-year-old tooth.
Okay, that's old.
And get this, a 72,000-year-old skull.
Wow, how does DNA even survive that long?
It's incredible, right?
I mean, that's a whole other deep dive.
Yeah, the conditions have to be just right for preservation.
So they extract this ancient DNA?
Right, but it's not like a perfect sample.
Meaning it's fragmented.
Like a puzzle with missing pieces.
Exactly, so the next step is sequencing.
Putting those DNA pieces in order.
Yeah, but it's like a massive jigsaw puzzle with billions of pieces.
Sounds computationally intense.
Oh, it is. They use powerful computers and algorithms
to reconstruct the entire dire wolf genome.
As accurately as possible.
Talk about high tech.
Then they compare that genome to the gray wolf's genome.
Their closest living relative.
Right, to pinpoint the key differences.
The genetic code that makes a dire wolf a dire wolf.
Exactly.
So they've got the blueprint now. How do they actually build the animal? Enter CRISPR.
CRISPR, yeah, I've heard of that.
It's a gene editing tool.
Like molecular scissors.
A very precise way to cut and paste DNA.
So they use CRISPR to insert those dire wolf genes
into gray wolf embryos.
Whoa, so they're basically tweaking the gray wolf blueprint
to match the dire wolf.
And then these modified embryos
are implanted into surrogate gray wolf mothers.
It's kind of wild to think about.
It really is.
And it worked.
Did they have dire wolf pups?
You're kidding?
Nope. Romulus and Remus.
Wow, like the founders of Rome?
A fitting name for a groundbreaking project.
So these pups are like the first dire wolves in thousands of years.
They're living proof that de-extinction is possible.
But what about their well-being?
That's a top priority for Colossal.
I hope so. Bringing back an extinct animal comes with huge responsibility.
Absolutely. Romulus and Remus are being raised in a special environment.
Like mimicking their natural habitat?
As much as possible.
Yeah, they're constantly monitored.
By experts, I assume.
Yeah. Animal behaviorists, veterinarians, the whole team, to make sure they're thriving.
Exactly, and to learn as much as possible about their behavior.
You mentioned challenges with the ancient DNA. Were there other hurdles?
Oh yeah, reconstructing that fragmented genome was a huge computational feat.
Imagine piecing together a shredded document.
And then the gene editing itself required tons of fine-tuning.
Trial and error.
Absolutely, to make sure the embryos developed properly.
So with Romulus and Remus healthy, what's next for the project?
A lot of research.
Makes sense. Got to learn everything about these animals.
Exactly, their biology, behavior, physiology.
And ultimately, what's the goal for these dire wolves?
Well, long term, they're considering introducing them into larger controlled ecosystems.
Like a protected reserve,
Yeah, to see how they interact with the environment.
and how they might impact other species,
It's all about gathering data.
and seeing if they could play a role in ecosystem restoration.
Right. Maybe even help rebalance things.
Speaking of other species, Colossal is also working on the woolly mammoth, right?
And the Thylacine,
Yeah.
the Tasmanian tiger.
How does the dire wolf project compare to those?
Each one has unique challenges.
Like with the mammoth, they're using elephants as the starting point.
Yeah, trying to adapt them to colder climates.
Totally different from working with wolves.
And the Thylacine is a marsupial.
So a whole different reproductive system.
The dire wolf project has been crucial for advancing our understanding of carnivore genetics.
Refining those gene editing techniques.
Exactly.
So the scientists who saw Romulus and Remus for the first time described it as surreal. An animal that's been extinct for millennia suddenly alive again.
It must have been an overwhelming mix of emotions.
Awe at the achievement responsibility for these creatures.
And the fact that they seem to be behaving like dire wolves.
Not just like gray wolves.
That's huge. It confirms they're on the right track.
So how do you even begin to care for an animal from the Ice Age?
It's uncharted territory.
No owner's manual for that.
Colossal is working with top ethologists and behaviorists.
Learning as they go.
Yeah, observing the pups closely.
And they're already seeing some unique traits.
Right. They're more independent than gray wolves.
And less reliant on pack structure. Interesting. So their social dynamics are different.
Even their communication seems to have subtle variations.
So they're not just carbon copies of gray wolves.
They're truly dire wolves with their own distinct behaviors.
It's amazing and a little daunting.
Yeah, we're dealing with an animal we barely understand.
So what about releasing them into the wild?
That's a big question, right?
Is that the eventual goal?
Not anytime soon.
They need way more research first.
Absolutely. They have to model the environmental impact.
See how they'd fit into modern ecosystems.
Yeah, things are different now than they were in the Ice Age.
New predators, new diseases.
They have to assess all the risks.
Makes sense. You don't want to create more problems.
Right, it's a delicate balance.
But the idea of dire wolves roaming wild again is tantalizing.
I know, right?
Like stepping back in time.
They're even exploring the idea of introducing them into managed reserves.
Like a Pleistocene park.
It's exactly a controlled environment where they could thrive.
And potentially help restore those ecosystems.
Yeah, imagine dire wolves helping to control elk populations.
Keeping things in check.
Yeah, but it's crucial to proceed with caution.
Because introducing a new predator could have unintended consequences.
Absolutely, they need to thoroughly study the potential impacts.
So de-extinction is groundbreaking, but it's not without risks.
Right. Some people worry about genetic instability in these resurrected animals.
Or unexpected behaviors.
What if they're more aggressive than we anticipate?
Or what if they carry diseases that could harm other species?
Those are valid concerns.
How is Colossal addressing those risks?
Well, they're extremely cautious.
Everything is heavily regulated and peer-reviewed.
They're working with ethicists and ecologists.
It's not just about can we do it, but should we do it?
Exactly, and if so, how do we do it responsibly?
It's a huge ethical debate.
And they're taking it very seriously.
So beyond the science, what's the big takeaway from this dire wolf project?
I think it shows what's possible when science and conservation come together.
And with a healthy dose of imagination.
Right. It's about pushing boundaries, but also recognizing our responsibility.
The dire wolf is just one example.
The techniques they're developing could help save endangered species.
It's about preserving life in all its forms.
Past, present, and future.
That's a powerful message.
It is, and it makes you think.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the potential of de-extinction.
And the ethical questions that come with it.
It's not a simple issue.
No, it requires careful consideration.
But if we can bring back what was lost?
What does that mean for how we protect what still exists?
Huge questions to ponder.
Questions that deserve our attention.
I encourage everyone listening to learn more about Colossal's work.
And the whole field of de-extinction.
It's a fascinating topic with far-reaching implications.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the future of life on Earth.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Until next time.
Take care.